Hello everyone. As promised, or perhaps threatened, here we are with the 1 o'clock, perhaps I'm a little early, introduction to the two newest books we've published from Tales of Wonder and Dread Publishing. We'll do this one first. I know it's showing up backwards. I don't know how to fix that. But it's Relics, Remnants, and Artifacts, More Collected Works of Gary Hill. In 2018, I released an updated version of Strange Realities, which was a collected works sort of thing, with a lot of short stories and other things. And so this is sort of the sequel to that. There's been quite a bit of stuff published since then. We'll start off with fiction. I've got a story called The Passage, which is actually in the other book I'm going to show you too, Spooky Stories, published at the same time in both of those, which is a story about a passage across the ocean in the early 1900s, and that's all I'm going to say about it. The Curse of Salantusen, which was published in Spooky Berwyn, and is an Egyptology type story, sort of a twist on the Egyptian curse thing, that is set in the Chicago suburbs. Most specifically in Berwyn and actually in Chicago. The No Sugar Plums is brand new for this story, or for this book, and it's a Christmas story, as you might guess. It's going to be in horrifying holidays as well. It's about something unexpected under the Christmas tree. Let's just put it that way and stop with it. And then Grief is a time travel story that was in temporal stories, I think we called it. It was a collection of time travel stories, but it's on the surface it's a time travel story, but really it's more of an allegory and sort of an illustration of the stages of grief, which any psychologist will tell you some people don't go through all of them and they go through them in different orders, but that's basically what I was trying to do with that story. And then there's Secret Santa. Now, Secret Santa is in spooky houses as well. It's about a lady who starts getting strange presents at her door and doesn't know what they are. And then there's a brand new one called I Saved the Beatles, which, as far as I'm concerned, is a feel-good vampire story, if you can imagine that. And then we've got some other things, some nonfiction stuff that go from, there's a biography I did for Spooky Rockford 2 on Robert Hall Tinker. And then there are a number of paranormal stories, some of which have been published in different books, from Spooky Rockford 2 to Spooky Berwyn and other books like that. But then there are some brand new ones on some supposedly haunted breweries, and those kinds of things. And some of those have never been published before. And then we go further down, and I've got reviews in here. Now these are reviews not that I've done at Music Street Journal. I've got some that I originally published at Wormwood Chronicles under the name Dark Star. Is my pen name there, and then some that were published at a British website called Mass Movement I also write for, run by Tim Cundall. And then we've also got, now those are range from music reviews to movie reviews. There's a comic book review and that kind of thing. I've also got some Music Street Journal print exclusives. Now, since we started publishing Music Street Journal simultaneously in book form, each book has a print edition exclusive. In other words, it's not on the website. And this collects the ones that haven't been published elsewhere other than in those books. And there are 3 Halloween ones, basically focused on the music for Halloween type stuff, ranging from just spooky music to horror movie theme songs done by rock bands. And then there are Christmas ones, 3 Christmas ones, which are all about Christmas music. Some focused on just basic Christmas music, and one of them on progressive rock. And then there are 3 poems in here that I've done that were published originally in the 1980s or 90s. I don't remember which. I don't even remember where they were published now, but then they were published last year in Lisa Palmino's Market Street Press. So I decided to put them in this book, and that kind of rounds out what's in here. Again, backwards cover, but it's Relics, Remnants, and Artifacts. More collected works of Gary Hill. Now the other book is Spooky Stories. And again, backwards cover, but kind of a cool cover, I think. I like the other cover too. But this one is a collection of creepy fiction, nonfiction stories, and also poetry. And we've got some of my stuff in here. I've got the passage which I mentioned before. And I've also got, got to remember what else I've got in. Oh, The Curse of Simon Tucson. So both of these are in that other book. But then we've got some a story by Elizabeth Lynn Blackson called Revenant, which is a pretty creepy story if you ask me. It's about someone stumbling up the driveway at an old country sort of house, so you can picture it someplace in the deep south based on the narrator's speech and stuff, and just some of the descriptions. So it's a pretty creepy story if you ask me. We've got Exponential, which is by my good friend Heath D. Alberts, and it is almost Lovecraftian in that there's a book which is a very ancient book that has some, shall we say, unusual properties that I'm not going to delve into much deeper here. And there is a, let me look here. I'm sorry, I'm looking at this, but trying to remember. It's funny, I get doing these. I'm currently working on 2 new ones, Horrifying Holidays and No More New Year's. And so I'm already so far past this one that I have to remember what's in it. But hey, The Sweet Dreams Motel by Stephen Osborne, which is a story about a ghost paranormal investigation that goes pretty terribly wrong. And then we've got, let's see. So we've got, and then that brings me to Frank Kaufman. We've got a number of poems from Frank. We've got 2 poems from him. One is The Forsaken, and the other one I've got to find here. Where is it? The other one, I think, is near the end of the fiction section. Oh, the Ghosts of Old, I know I pronounce it Samhain, which is incorrectly, and Frank has specifically written in here how it's supposed to be pronounced, but I have to go to the actual page to find that, so, because it's not in the index, so I apologize for mispronouncing it, Frank, and I realize it's not the correct pronunciation, what I used, but so be it. And then Frank's got those 2 poems in here. He also has a couple stories, one of which is it's Wythes, and again, I'm not sure how that word is supposed to be pronounced, but it's a creepy story about a family that makes their living selling wicker, making and selling wicker stuff, and sort of, I can't go into much more detail about it, but it is very creepy, and just a tiny bit gory, not too much, but a tiny bit. And he's also got Chindi, again, may not be pronouncing that right, which is a modern Navajo tale. And I actually asked Frank, because I know Frank is good on research and things like that and accuracy. So I asked him because I wanted to make sure that all the Native American stuff in it has been properly researched and is legitimately correct, and it is. And I don't know, it's a creepy kind of almost ghost story, but it's not precisely a ghost story, but it's close to that. And I really like the tone of the story, and I think it has some reverence to Native American mythology and Native American practices, which is cool. If I didn't think it was reverential, I wouldn't publish it probably, but I did, and it's a really cool story. I think that is all the short stories we've got in here, but we do, at least from people who are the new ones. We do have one more poem. It's called Spiritual Homestead, and it's by Ernie Fuhrer, and it's sort of about a ghostly cabin, and it's a cool little poem. Now we've got, rounding out the fiction stuff, we've got The Outsider by H.P. Lovecraft, a poem by John Donne called The Apparition, The Hag, which is a poem by Robert Herrick, The Cask of Amontillado by Edgar Allan Poe. Again, I probably butchered that pronunciation. A poem called Halloween by Robert Burns, a poem called Darkness by Lord Byron, and a story called The Suitable Surroundings by Ambrose Bierce. We've got another poem, Haunted Houses by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. I mean, you can't beat that guy. And speaking of giants of poetry, we've got Ghost House, which is a poem by Robert Frost. We've got a story called A Pastoral Horror by Arthur Conan Doyle, and a poem called Haunted by Siegfried Sassoon. And we've got a poem called Goblin Market, which is an 1862 poem from Christina Rossetti. And one of the giants of old horror stuff, Sheridan Le Fanu. We've got his story, an account of some strange disturbances in Angir. Sorry, again, problems with pronunciation. Street. Another poem called Halloween. This one's spelled a little differently, by Joel Benton. And the classic, The Signal Man, which would have actually fit in my Horrifying Holidays because it is sort of a Christmas story, just by Charles Dickens. A Child's Nightmare, which is a poem by Robert Graves. And The Raven, of course, the classic poem by Edgar Allan Poe. We've got the classic horror story Lost Hearts by M.R. James. Halloween in a Suburb, which is a poem by Lovecraft, H.P. Lovecraft. And that rounds out all the fiction stuff. Now we've got nonfiction too. Now the haunted breweries that I mentioned, all those articles are actually in this book as well because they fit in here. All but one that I had printed in Spooky Houses. I don't believe I put that one in here too. In fact, I'm sure I didn't. But we've got, those are pretty much it. Those round out this book, and that's everything in here. We've got, like I said, a lot of good stuff in there. It's a good place to get some old classics and a lot of modern stuff from some really cool people. Now, this one, I'm going to be doing some chats with some of the contributors to this, like I did for Spooky Houses. Hopefully get everyone involved. We'll see. But and actually soon we're going to be doing, the group of us, or at least a good chunk of the group of us, are going to be doing something with Calvin Schwartz, who did an interview with me a few weeks ago. And he's going to do a group interview, a group chat about this one. So that should be fun stuff. So in the meantime, that's it for this time, and we'll talk to you soon. Oh, one more thing. You can get all of these if you go to Gary Hill Author, or both of those if you go to GaryHillAuthor.com. And then there's a Tales of Wonder and Dread Publications book or page. If you go there, you can find the link to buy all of those. including Spooky Houses, which I mentioned. Well, Horrifying Holidays isn't there yet because it's not finished. But you get the idea. So now that we had a false ending, this is the real ending. Thanks again for tuning in. Spooky Ventures is the home for spooky content and spooky merchandise on the web. Check it out today at spookyventures.com. And remember, always keep it spooky.